Well, there you are.
Front and center. Oh, I can take
I
that.
used to be on the left here.
I know.
All right, let's go. We'll call this meeting of the Jamestown City Council July work session to order. The clerk, please call the roll.
Council members. Brackman. Here. Karuba. Here. Reynolds.
Present.
Faulkner.
Here.
Eklund. Here. Diversa.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
And President Knowles.
Here. At this time, we'll give opportunity for the public to speak. If you'd like to speak to the council tonight, limit your remarks to 5 minutes, give your name and address, and come to the microphones, and then you'll like to speak to the council. We have quite a few before the housing meeting, and obviously others.
Good evening, council members. Todd Tranum with the Manufacturers Association of Southern Tier. I'm also here, although I don't serve in any official capacity with the Chamber of Commerce. I spoke with my colleague Dan Heitzenreiter, President and CEO of the Chamber, who couldn't be here tonight due to some other obligation, but I'm also here to speak on behalf of the Chamber. Again, Todd Tranum, our offices are at 300 North Main Street. I reside at 5639 Rivulet Avenue in Bemis Point. We represent manufacturers throughout the Southern Tier, equaling $14.5 billion in annual shipments per year. And we work with a lot of employers and a lot of employees in the area. I'm here particularly to speak to what I believe is Resolution 2 on the agenda. As you know, I don't have to tell you this, but I will reinstate it. It's been a real challenging year, a couple years, 2.5 years for businesses. While some have thrived, some have not made it. Some are trying to get back up on their feet. Some are positioned to really make some inroads in terms of creating new jobs and making new investments in their plan. And I think you've got a once-in-a-generation opportunity with the American Rescue Plan to really help the businesses in Jamestown. And why should you support the business community through this economic stabilization funding opportunity? It's because businesses, particularly manufacturers, generate wealth. They import dollars into our economy, new dollars that go to pay for salaries, support jobs, pay benefits, purchase services, and importantly, pay taxes. And as I mentioned, manufacturers are in a unique position where they import new dollars into our economy. Good jobs, strong economy, help strengthen our communities and our neighborhoods. You've got a lot on your agenda in terms of navigating through rebuilding our communities and our neighborhoods. The quickest, fastest way to do that is to create jobs and good paying jobs right here in Jamestown. And investing in businesses is going to have the highest return on investment for any of the money you spend through this program. It's our understanding that there's about $500,000 allocated towards some of these programs. We appreciate that and appreciate the investment you're making in the business community, but we understand there's about $2.8 million in requests, and certainly understand you probably don't have the funding necessarily to fund all of those, but we do request that you do what you can to fund those projects that meet the criteria that has been established. I don't think there's a business in town that is against being held accountable to meet the criteria for the funding, but the reality is, again, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to help these businesses that are paying taxes, that are paying wages and salaries to people who live here in the community, who also in turn invest in their homes and pay taxes. And you're going to get the best return out of being able to support these businesses and help them excel, help them grow, and help them create new jobs. So ahead of time, thank you for your support. Thank you for your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak to the council?
Doug Champ, 225 Wall Street. It's not on here, I didn't think I'd come back again for a while, but some issues maybe return. It's not that I'm against anything that is going to happen on the American Rescue Plan, and its vitality of reinvestment in our community. It's critical, but what is also critical is how sustainable is it going to be, and what are we going to get in return on investment. Some of these applications on the economic development side are highly needed and highly important. However, my problem is with the equity in terms of longevity of the program. Many of them are asking for, and I heard a discussion on this earlier, and one of the reasons why I'm here tonight is I had asked city council members, how much they knew about these applications and what were the dynamics that were unfolding within those applications. Such things as measuring out the requirements under the discretionary money of the American Rescue Plan formula. It's not like something you can just anticipate the needs, everybody has them, but it also has to be measured out. Mr. Tam talked rightfully so about job creation, sales, product development, assess valuation increases, a lot of potentials. But again, remember, the reason why this money is here is because of COVID and the health associated with coming out of the death cycle that caused. So, the federal government, Department of Treasury, actually has a standard that needs to be measured. Those standards require return on investment to the recipient, which is the city. The beneficiaries are going to be those that receive it. However, there also are ancillary applications attached to the beneficiaries, what they're doing with the money and how the money is being spent. Now, when we allocate a certain amount of money to a program, it's based on needs. Not to say that the needs aren't there, they are there. However, when you're spending down in an application in the relationship of money of 75% grant and 25% equity, now that can be massaged a little bit based on the dynamics of that grant in terms of what you're actually recovering or not recovering. But that's why you don't have sustainability. I would much rather see a multitude of other businesses get 50% rather than some get 75%. So you would have longevity factors built in to this particular program. I'm not against anything of this, but I've been there, done that, and I saw how money dissipates itself, how it wears away, and it's gone forever. So the multitude is better than a few. So that's my point. Now, the change midstream is something totally unrelated. Is that I had asked the mayor to have the Board of Public Utilities meetings streamed so city council and the community could understand what the BPU is doing. That's not been done yet, and I'd like to know what that would be. Are we going to do it? The future of the Board of Public Utilities is critical. The multi-million-dollar operation it is, it's going to be decimated in terms of electrical demands that are necessary to fulfill the requirements from this city and the state of New York under the climate change program. In other words, they want to electrify everything. So when you invest in these houses, bear witness that down the road, you may have to convert them to electric versus gas. So the BPU should have their meetings streamed so the citizens and those city council members who can't go to those meetings can understand what's going to happen in the future, because that utility is critical to the economic recovery of this community and the opportunities that's going to unfold, which they cannot possibly maintain the status quo. I also asked a question which wasn't answered. The BPU is allocating $7 million for solar and thermal capture. Where does that money come from? It's going to have to come from the ratepayers. And the ratepayers is all of us. Is that investment going to work? Time will tell. Fuel diversification is extremely important. But the people need to know what the future is with that utility. And I'm not so sure that even the city council member know who the president of the BPU board is. So I would ask also that the mayor have a joint meeting between city council and the Board of Public Utilities, so they can understand each other, so they can flush out what the future is going to be for this community. Because since 2018 until 2026, $18.5 million is leaving this community by wire to the state of New York to fund rec, zec, and ORIC, the charges of which are fees attached to your fuel adjustment costs. They can't talk about it. The future is dynamic, folks, and the utility needs to be part of this discussion. It's future and it's present. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Seeing none, we'll move on. We have two presentations. I know Ellen has one. Ellen, you can go ahead. Wherever you, yeah.
Okay.
Zach will follow your.
Okay. If I can I come through here to give you some? Okay. Just so you have some frame of reference. So I'm here to give an update on the mural that is going to be installed at the Spring Street parking garage. And so since our award of the grant in January and the approval in March, we conducted a application process and a search for an artist, and I'm happy to say that we have found our artist, and that is Miss Molly Strong here. And so in your materials, the cover page is just a reminder as to where the work is going to be going. The stairwell interior is probably not going to be included in this phase of the beautification. We don't have the resources to clean the surfaces sufficiently for that to be done. So we will hope that that will be in a future phase for the garage. And the second page is the application, the concept in the application that Molly submitted, and then kind of where the concept has evolved thus far. And I'll let her speak a little bit more about that.
Sure, yeah. So I'm looking forward to this opportunity. I'll be painting the 3 walls right outside this window, right under Lucy there, and then it goes around at the same height above and below that first window that says ice cream on it, and then around the side where the door is for the parking ramp to the stairwell. And I will be starting that as soon as possible. I'm looking forward to it. The artwork that I submitted at first, which is obviously a very rough draft of an idea of what the flowers would look like, and over time I changed it to a more realistic approach with more lines and more skill involved, as you can see. And the other references were composition plans and, there were a couple other that we went through. I didn't know they were, sorry. No, you're fine, that's fine. Just other colors and compositions that I talked about. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. So this is the.
Yes, basically.
That's the current concept.
Yes. And I would also reference this if you are curious in detail. It will, when I painted it, I'm painting on literally a piece of paper the size you're holding, and I couldn't capture detail with my paintbrush. So that is why I did a second drawing. Cool.
How's Lucy doing? Is she okay?
Oh, she's doing
This picture of her-
She could use
She
a
will
refresh.
soon be adored around her.
Yeah, she does look like she was a little. But that was a good one. Any questions?
Super, good luck.
Awesome, thank you. I do have a question regarding liability insurance. When I had talked on the phone today with someone, they wanted me to ask you all if you wanted to be on the insurance with me, or if that's separate, and I'm new to this, so I'm not sure if that question is able to.
City needs to be named additional.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, council members, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we're for the mayor and with the corporation.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
walk you through that. Thank you. Zach, you had
Yes.
something too?
Well, thank you, council members, for the opportunity to present today. This is in reference to number 14 on the public safety agenda. As I noted in the public safety meeting, it was not the full resolutions on there. That should be back in the full 200-plus page packet that you got there. Excuse me 1 second, just like to do that. But this is regarding Vision Zero. So if you do look in your packet on that page 14, or on number 14 on the public safety agenda, it is not the full resolution. I'll make sure that all of you have that. It again should be in the back of your packet that you received digitally on Thursday. Next slide. So what is Vision Zero? So there's been a lot of discussion about this, and I'll get to the reasons here at the end why we are looking to pass a resolution to have a Vision Zero policy. So it's a multinational traffic safety project that aims to achieve a road system with no fatalities or serious injuries involving road traffic. It began in Sweden in the late 90s, and a number of municipalities and states have adopted in the U.S., including DC, New York City, North Carolina, Austin, Texas, among many others. Next slide. So Vision Zero is policy through design. It takes kind of a new approach, really reorienting towards traffic death being preventable versus inevitable, recognizing that humans are going to fail, that there's obviously people are going to make mistakes, not perfect. So we need to design roads and systems to ensure that we account for those things and that we lessen the impacts of those mistakes that are made. Next slide. It recognizes, like I said, sometimes people make mistakes, so the road system and related policy should be designed to ensure those inevitable mistakes do not result in serious injuries or death. This means system designers and policymakers are expected to improve the roadway environment policies such as speed management and other related systems to lessen severity of crashes. Pretty much what I was saying before. Next slide. So safe systems equals safe mobility. It's kind of a feedback loop into each other. You look at system planners, they're policymakers. They're responsible for prioritizing safety and designs. That includes our DPW, our planning department, and yourselves. The road users were responsible for following rules. And then road users make mistakes, we have to adapt to those mistakes. So designs and policies analyze for safety improvements. Next slide. It's a multidisciplinary approach. Brings together diverse and necessary stakeholders to address the problem. Acknowledges many factors to safe mobility, roadway design, speeds, behaviors, technologies, and policies, and sets a clear goal to achieve the shared goal of zero fatality and serious injuries. Next slide. So each year, more than 40,000 people are killed on roadways. That number is dramatically increasing since the onset of COVID. It is up, new figures came out, it's up over 20% per traffic mile over the past 2 years. It's really been kind of an alarming rise after we've seen kind of a decrease in deaths over the past 2 decades. So this is really trying to focus to prevent those traffic collisions. Next slide. Statistics, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration projects an estimated 31,000 people died in motor vehicle traffic crashes from January through September 2021. That was an increase of 12% through the first 9 months of 2020. The projection is the highest number of fatalities during the first 9 months of any year since 2006, and the highest percentage increase in the first 9 months in the fatality analysis reporting system's history. So it is going up. It is not, we've obviously had some high profile accidents here, but we are certainly not the only place that is seeing that. Crashes have killed an estimated more than 6,700 pedestrians in 2020. That was up about 5% from the year before, and obviously 2020 was when we had COVID, so there was a lot less vehicle miles traveled. And as you can see there in the last point, the vehicle miles traveled, the group projected that the pedestrian fatality rate spiked 21% as deaths climbed sharply, even though people drove much less than last year. That was the largest ever year-over-year increase. Next slide. So there's a number of ways that you can approach Vision Zero. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We do a lot of this here in the city based on our complete streets policy already. It's really just trying to figure out some cost-effective ways to help increase or decrease the chance that that there are fatal accidents on the road. So that includes, potentially variable speed limits, speed safety cameras, backplates with reflective borders around, as you've probably seen them around, just those yellow reflective plates around traffic signals, and longer yellow change intervals, and more roadway control. So an example of this that we'll get to later is kind of what they're doing with Washington Street right now, kind of reducing that down. I know it's a pain for everyone right now, but reducing that down from the 4 lanes down to 2, and kind of that should reduce speeds on that road, quite significantly. Next slide. Here's some other things that we talked about. This is, I talked about it a bit in the public safety meeting, but crosswalk visibility enhancements, making sure that people know, especially on these mid-block crosswalks that we have, leading pedestrian interval, road diets as we're seeing, more walkways, hybrid beacons, improved lighting, and of course, what we'll get to here is road safety audits and local road safety plans. Next slide. Well, this is something that I think that's obviously quite a bit more than what we would have here in the city of Jamestown, but just kind of showing kind of a mixed-use street there with bus lanes and the like. Not necessarily always super applicable to Jamestown itself, but there are a number of places here that we can definitely make many improvements. Next slide. This is another element of Vision Zero. It's universal design, and designing for everyone in mind, including those who are not fully abled. As you can see here, this is just kind of a mock-up, but increasing the amount for those who have a hard time seeing by including rumble strips around. Not necessarily, again, something that we'll always look to do. It's very much based on the kind of the availability to be realistic with the funds that we have, but just wanted to show what Vision Zero kind of aims to do and tries to design for everyone in mind. Next slide. I just put Washington Street on here. I initially gave this presentation to the chairman of the Public Works Committee and the chairman of the Public Safety Committee, as well as a number of our department heads and BPU. This was on deck, and obviously we're currently going through the construction phase, but obviously this is going to be a pretty major road diet going down from 2 to 4, from 4 lanes down to 2. Next slide. So the overall Vision Zero objectives, building sustained leadership, collaboration, accountability. There's many stakeholders in this. We're all a part of it, every single person here in the city of Jamestown, as well as our department heads, our city council, administration, and our community members. So we need to do that, we need to also collect and use and analyze the data that we have to understand what trends we're seeing, potential disproportionate impacts on traffic deaths on certain population, podiatrists and community engagement, making sure that we're managing speed to safe levels. Obviously, the lower speeds are, the less likely you are to get a serious injury or fatality. Then setting a timeline to achieve 0 traffic deaths and serious injuries, which brings urgency and accountability and ensures transparency on the progress and the challenges that we're going to face. Next slide. So actually just go on to the next slide, Jen. We're trying to focus on kind of low-cost, quick build projects that really can help build perception and buy-in for Vision Zero. These don't have to be particularly expensive. They definitely demonstrate the ability to make changes and showcase possibilities. And if you have the correct data of where certain intersections or certain roads have high amount of injuries, deaths, accidents, you can really target those changes so you are making the most cost-effective choice. So part of it is pedestrian education campaigns, but you are really focusing on those low cost effective solutions that can be widely deployed. Next slide. Which brings us to why we're bringing it up right now. Department of Transportation, through the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was passed last year, has $5 billion worth of funding over the next 5 years. It's for municipalities of all sizes. Those are planning and implementation grants. We've been in discussions, obviously, as you are all aware, for school zone safety, trying to analyze all of our school zones to see where improvements can be made for crosswalks and the like. So through that, this grant has come up. It is a federal grant that we're looking to apply for. We need a road action plan, though, if we're going to get the substantial amount of funds that you can get for a implementation grant. So we're looking to get grant funding for planning a full road action plan that allows us to gather the data. Again, we have this data. Our police department obviously collects accident data. It's just a matter of collating that data, trying to find out what the best solution is for those high impact areas, and being able to get a grant, be able to write a road action plan with a lot of community input, so that we can apply for a full implementation grant in 2023. So it does fit into our works, and it would give the city a comprehensive overview in those areas to focus on. So the grant does require an official public commitment by a governing body for the eventual goal of zero roadway or serious injuries achieved through either a target date for achieving zero roadway fatalities in serious industries, or an ambitious percentage reduction of roadway fatalities in serious industries by a specific date. So that is included in the full resolution. We had initially set it for 2032, so 10 years, which is pretty typical for Vision Zero plans. But we will certainly get that language to you, but that is why we're pushing it right now. We want to get feedback on this as we look to plan for the future. Thank you for your time. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
How much funding would you be looking to apply for, and how many streets would you expect you would be what you're applying for?
Well,
Do you have an idea, or are you going to start in the center and work out, or what's the plan?
yeah, so that's why the planning grant is so big, that we can kind of see what that would be. We have some cost estimates for example, what the school zone would cost, but it would actually go well beyond that. The minimum award for this is, I believe, $3 or $4 million. So it's quite substantial. So we could do quite a number of large-scale projects with this. And that's a big part, is making sure that we have that plan in place. The planning grant is much, much smaller. It would certainly not be that high. But it's something that we need to do to get a road action plan, to kind of take the year, go to the community, start to craft it, and obviously help bring it here and get feedback, so that we are well prepared for eventual implementation grant, hopefully next year.
Thanks.
Move on to our committee reports. Kim, you want to thank?
Sure.
Lots of stuff there.
Yeah, a lot. So I'm going to read the short version of them. The first three resolutions pertain to new ARPA funding. I did advise Crystal that only seeing this in the last few days, that there were some questions. And unfortunately, with only one work session and a voting session this month, I'm not sure what it's going to fall, if it'll be this month or next month, but at least I want to give everybody some time to absorb it. So, first resolution is resolved that the Jamestown City Council designates $750,000 in no cents in ARPA neighborhood stabilization funds for the purpose of creating a permanent 19A home ownership program. Ben, I don't know if you want to briefly summarize what you said in there.
All right, yeah, I'll be as brief as possible with this. So, as we previously discussed, the city has undertaken the process of taking title to properties vacant and have code violations present. Properties that we've taken thus far have a varying degree of code enforcement issues, from few to many. The basis overview of this program is that we're asking for this infusion of ARPA funds to get in so we can essentially make a program that will last into the future. Some of the properties we're looking at only 8-10 grand of work, valued at over 60. So properties like that, you can do the work, sell them. On the back end of the sale, you put a mortgage on it that essentially says they have to pay their taxes on time, they can't have any code violations, and you get the added benefits of that work going in, increasing assessment value, increasing tax revenue on those properties that are actually then occupied and having paid. I think where we're coming from is that far too long in the city, home ownership rates have been declining. Property after property has fallen into a cycle of getting sold for next to nothing at a tax auction, having no work done on it, going right back into the tax auction 3 years later, and eventually they all end up demoed. The aim of this project, and I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the 4 estimates we gave you because I don't want to waste everyone's time. I know we're pretty late as it is trying to reverse that trend of home ownership. I mean, even if we're only doing it a dozen properties at a time, that's still homeowners that have to stay homeowners for 5 years. So I think generally we're asking for, I think, kind of discussed setting them out at the low end of what we thought we could make this a sustainable program out of. You're not going to make money on every house. Some of the ones in what would be considered lesser neighborhoods in the city are selected based upon kind of their location. The one up on Johnson Street, right next to one of the few owner-occupieds on Johnson Street, taken care of. We get that there, we've created a cluster on Johnson Street that can eventually be spread. The one on North Main, 810 North Main, right next to a business that takes good care of his property. We hear regular complaints from him about how some of the surrounding properties are detracting from his values. You move that cluster of stability one parcel up the street, and in the end, you hope that you can spread that. Some of the ones in nicer neighborhoods, we've got one on Beach Street, literally probably the worst street on the block, but it honestly doesn't need a whole lot of work. So there, you're kind of stabilizing the entire block by just doing one house. And I guess at this point, I'd probably just prefer to answer any questions because I don't want to waste everyone's time tonight.
You misspoke, you said the worst street on the block.
Oh, the worst house on the block.
Yes,
Sorry.
I want to hear from people on Beach.
All that caffeine's got me a little jumpy and my brain's fluttering, so.
I just had a quick question. In the resolution, the language kind of jumps back and forth between using the term grant and sale. Is the city going to get into the real estate business of selling these homes to people, or are these homes going to be granted? And how should we, when we go back to our constituents, answer the question, is why should the city get involved in basically real estate transactions?
Okay, so I'm going to answer the first question you posed with saying that's really kind of going to be on a case-by-case basis, whether we're selling it. In some cases, I know at least the one over on Park, we've heard interest from someone who would like to come in, and has money to rehab it themselves. So something like that, we acquire it, give it to them for essentially what's owed on the taxes, maybe a little bit more, and let them rehab it themselves, get it up where it is. In other cases, unfortunately, yeah, we're going to be selling these places, especially some of the ones in nicer neighborhoods. I think in order to build sustainability into the program, you can't be taking a loss on every single property that goes through it. Some of these, I think, got one at 177 Barker that actually was up with Councilman DeVersa last week. Beautiful shape, needs a little bit of minor structural work on the inside. People inside had a bit of a hoarding problem, but thankfully it's all like boxes of random stuff and not rotting garbage. There's a still wrapped, brand new $4,000 refrigerator in the kitchen. So, I mean, places like that, yeah, we're gonna sell them. We're gonna work with our nonprofit partners to identify potential first-time homeowners that would be a good fit for a place like that. But in order to make the program sustainable, at a certain point, we are going to have to start selling some of these properties.
When you say selling, so the city would put them up for sale, or the city would list them with a real estate agent? How would that work?
That is not something I necessarily have the answer to right now.
Yep.
I think
So
we have a agreement-ish with a real estate company?
No.
We don't? Okay, so I guess that fell through, so
We will,
maybe I'll have to put on a real estate salesman.
I got it, Ben.
Some days.
I got it, Ben. The goal of this program is, one, neighborhood stabilization, and two, to create new homeownership opportunities for people who may not otherwise, be able to enter homeownership in the traditional sense. So working with our partners at COI, who have a first-time home buyers program, as well as CRIC. The Land Bank is also working on putting together a home ownership program that would kind of mentor new homeowners for the longer term. So they get through their first-time home buyer course, qualify for our program, and then they continue to receive some mentorship. Along with that, we're working to establish some relationships with local banks. So financial literacy is part of the plan and part of the bigger picture. So educating these first-time home buyers on, saving your money for, when your furnace breaks, or you need to put on a new roof, or you need to do the things to maintain the property. And then also helping them build a banking relationship if they don't have one or they've never had one, helping them establish credit. So it's kind of the bigger picture, like trying to accomplish a lot of things in one, and really by creating new homeowners, holding their hands through that process, and also not putting them right into a property that they have to then try to find a way to rehab themselves. So it's partnering them or matching them with either a home program or something that CRIC might have, or something that Code might have. So making sure that they're, we're rehabbing the property, we're increasing the value, we're creating responsible homeowners, and, it's a win for everybody, and it stabilizes the neighborhood at the same time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, is there an enforcement element to that?
Yes, so,
They leave in 2 years instead of 5?
yes, well, yes, so we're gonna put essentially a mortgage on each of these properties. They can't leave for 5 years. They have to pay their taxes. So they have to keep it up to code once it's actually been brought up to code. Obviously, if we move them in halfway, put them in the home program to get the rest of the stuff done, we aren't gonna be exercising that option. And we can also, in the ones where we have to put in significant money and we're not just, granting it for someone to rehab themselves, we can also put a 5-year, essentially anti-spec on all the money that we put into it. It's similar to what we do with our home program, where if they leave in 3 years, they owe us a certain percentage of the money that was put in order to be able to do that. So there's a lot of built-in protections on the back end to make sure that we're not just kind of willy-nilly handing stuff out there and letting it essentially be flipped immediately by speculators or something like that.
If we're holding, I guess, for lack of better words, the note of paperwork on the house for that 5-year period, does that put any kind of legal liability on the city for lawsuits or anything like that coming from outside? I mean, if we're still involved in that house and we're involved in that whole process, is there some liability under the city for that?
That's
Well, let's say someone sues the homeowner.
Once the title's changed, we're generally good. The point where we face the most liability is when we're actually waiting to get the title out to someone. So that's where we face our biggest area of concern, which is why it's better for us to get these done and get them to someone else quickly.
And the anti-spec, just to clarify, we have a 5-year anti-speculation agreement with every homeowner who's enrolled in the home program through HUD. So it's something that we already do, and it's part of the regular process.
And that's also common with like Code and Crick and other organizations too. If they're giving you money, there's a set period of time that you have to stay, and if you don't, then you're retaining money back after a certain period. It's forgiven like a loan.
Moving on to resolution number 2 is a resolution designating an additional $1 million in no cents in ARPA development funds for the purpose of funding a building and property infrastructure improvement program to be administered by the JLBC in Jura, and this is funded through the ARPA. Crystal, I don't know if you want to.
Sure. If you recall, we originally, it was approved to allocate $500,000 for the building and infrastructure improvement program. And that was actually reduced down from 1.5 million, which was originally our initial ask for that program. We did receive $2.8 million in requests. Now those applications have just gone through an initial sort of pre-evaluation to make sure they're complete. They will be evaluated based on a matrix that we've developed. The JLBC, of course, has the oversight ability to make the decisions on the awards. When putting together the criteria, we looked at what the U.S. Treasury Department is requiring, as well as criteria that was requested and communicated through the Community Foundation report based on the public meetings that we had had prior to putting together any programs through ARPA. So we established those criteria. There are outcomes that are required by each applicant. They identify what their outcomes are going to be, and they have to meet those outcomes or they forfeit part of their award. So the award is a 25-75 split initially. So applicants are eligible to receive up to 75% of their total project costs in their award at a maximum of $200,000. And then out of that 75%, 50% is a grant and 50% is a forgivable loan. So if they do not meet the outcomes that they said they would meet, they forfeit that other 50%. So again, the need demonstrated is 2.8 million. We are requesting 1 million. Clearly we won't be able to fund every single request. We did notify applicants this was a highly competitive grant, but there are a significant number of applicants, and that's where that request is coming from.
I have a question for Kristen. Is this the only applicants that applied? Was there anybody that's out of all the businesses, these are the ones that filled an application?
That's who we received applications from. Yep.
And do we know what their actual projects are?
We do. We do. Their application was very detailed. They had to describe what the project was, the very specifics. They had to provide estimates. They had to speak to how these funds would, how they are eligible for ARPA. They had to describe what their hardships were. They have to talk about, number of jobs, whatever the investment will create. So, if it's, adding a new facet to their business, how is that going to benefit the community long term? What it is how are they demonstrating that there's a return on the investment?
Do you have a summary of you just gave us the funding amount requested. Do you have like a summary of what their project is and what their plan is that you could email everybody?
We can work on that and put that together.
I would like
Short
to
of,
see that.
sending you all the applications.
No, I mean, application?
Why?
I probably would, but I'm in the minority. But if you could send a summary, I
Yep.
would like to see that, and then if we have questions beyond that regarding a specific application that each individual may or may not have, then they could ask for that.
Certainly.
So some of these may not get awarded.
Correct. There are some on there who may not meet all of the eligibility requirements, and they also will be vetted by the JLDC board as well.
I had written some questions down before I came in the home, some of them have already been discussed about this, potential extra monies. Will this program be opened back up, or will you be using existing applications that you've already received?
No, we would go through the list that we currently have. The intention is not to reopen another round.
The second question I had was regarding, what Councilwoman Eklund just said. If we wanted to look at the applications, council members, could we come up to your office and actually
Absolutely,
view the applications?
absolutely.
And also, I know it was brought up on another occasion during the discussion that, and I think you said that you would add it to the application, that there would have to be transparency by these businesses showing any and all other
Yes.
COVID monies that they've received.
Yes.
Is that currently on
Correct.
those applications?
Yep, and it was part of the requirement that they had to attach any documentation they had from other COVID-related grants or funding they received.
Okay, thank you.
Krista, what I would look like to see, I guess, is a chart application with those main criteria checked, and maybe just a little detail on each project, and then if we want to look at full detailed applications from that,
Mm-hmm.
I think that would at least give everybody a starting point.
Okay.
And I noticed there was one on here blank, they decided not to do it.
Oh, they did decide to do it, but it was, there was a little,
Handhold.
a little hand-holding that was needed, yeah.
Okay.
They struggled, putting an application together.
But they have one in now?
Yeah.
Because there's no amount on here, so we would need that updated too.
Yeah, do you have him up?
Yeah, there's our town for 259,000. We're requesting 200,000.
Okay. Anybody else have any immediate questions? I flipped it over so much. There it is. Resolution number 3, designating up to an additional $2 million in no cents in ARPA, Healthy Communities and Neighborhood Funds for the purpose of funding the roof private sewer lateral, private water line repair replacement program to be administered through the JLDC by the Jura. You guys will recall the initial request was $750,000, so this will add an additional $2 million to that. Any questions or comments for Crystal? I mean, I think we all know what this program is, I don't know if you want to add anything.
I'll just add that we received 132, I'm sorry, it says 131 on your sheet, but it was actually 132 applications. We did prioritize them. We did establish that 17 of them were ineligible, but the rest of them are, and there certainly is a sort of a level of priority based on really the severity of the direness of the roofs that were submitted. And we did take photos of every single roof that was requested for repair or replacement. So, you know, adding this additional 2 million would allow us to do everything that is requested.
So how many homes?
That would be roughly 130. And right now, with the 750, we only have enough to do 30 roofs. And not every roof is going to need a $25,000 replacement. So, you know, there is a little bit of a margin of error, which is why we wrote it to be up to 2 million. So if we don't need the full 2 million, we would wanna see that go into another program.
And this is entirely for roofs that the application for the
Roof, sewer lateral,
But I'm
and
just
water
saying,
line, yep.
The ones you're talking about are all roofs being done, or no?
The majority, yep. There are a couple of sewer, lateral, and water line, but only, I think I can count on one hand.
I see you posting on social media where you're looking
Roof contractors?
for roof contractors.
Yep. We do have, a handful that we pre-qualified prior to releasing the applications. But given the sheer number and the need, we wanted to get some more in the queue.
Obviously, you're gonna be vetted.
We do, yes. Yep, we have a vetting process and there are requirements that we have to meet as well.
If you're looking, Councilman Russell, if you want to jump in the roofing business.
Business venture?
Okay. Moving on, resolutions 4, 5, and 6 all relate to, previously approved ARPA funding for fire department and fire building maintenance, but I will touch on them. Resolution number 4, the mayor is authorized to execute an agreement with DNS Glass Incorporated of Jamestown for entry door system installation, purchase and installation of entry door systems at fire station number 3, which is on Newland, fire station number 4 on Allen Street, and fire station number 5 on Fairmount Avenue. Total bid amount is $14,376.00, and that is again funded through ARPA. That was approved by finance. Resolution number 5, the mayor is authorized to execute an agreement with Alston Schaefer Electric of Jamestown for the purchase and installation of backup emergency generators at the following locations: Fire Station 3 on Newland, Fire Station 4 on Allen, and Fire Station 5 on Fairmount, for a total bid amount of $104,000.00, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council Fund as to form and funded through ARPA. That was approved through finance. Resolution number 6, mayor is authorized to execute an agreement with ProDock and Door Systems of North Collins, New York, for the purchase and installation of overhead door systems at the following locations: Fire Station 1 on Spring Street, Fire Station 3 on Newland Avenue, Fire Station 4 on Allen Street, Fire Station 5 on Fairmount Avenue, for a total bid amount of $77,735.00, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form, again funded through ARPA. Resolution number 7, Finance Committee is asking for an executive session. Okay. For pending litigation. Resolution number 8, that recruit firefighters Eric Eklund, Daniel McCarty, Matthew Bush, Adam Gulo, and Marion Saldana IV are authorized to attend the New York State Office of Fire Prevention and Control Recruit Firefighter Training Program as conducted by the New York State Academy of Fire Science, located in Montour Falls, beginning August 1, 2022, and concluding November 11, 2022, with fees and expenses paid pursuant to Section 77B of the General Municipal Laws of the State of New York. This will be funded through the 2022 general fund budget, and that was approved by finance. Resolution number 9, the mayor and Timothy Jackson, Police Chief, Director of Public Safety, are authorized and directed to enter into a purchase agreement with Robert Green Auto and Truck Incorporated of Monticello, New York, for the purchase of one 2022 Dodge Durango Police Pursuit WDEE 75 in the amount not to exceed $43,539.66, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. This vehicle is to replace one that was involved in an accident, so the majority of it will be covered through insurance, and the remainder will be covered from the contingency fund. That was approved through finance. Resolution number 10, the U.S. Department of Justice Bureau and Assistant is administering the 2022 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant Program. Whereas a public hearing is scheduled for July 19th, 2022 at 9 a.m. to receive public input. And this will be that the mayor is authorized to receive a grant for $18,866 to be utilized by the Jamestown Police Department to purchase day-to-day supplies and small equipment. I asked the controller to let us know what last year's grant was, just out of curiosity. That was approved by finance. Resolution number 11, mayor is authorized to enter into a shared services agreement with the Jamestown Public Schools, 197 Martin Road, Jamestown, New York, 14701, to share services, purchase, exchange, and lend materials or equipment which shall promote and assist the city of Jamestown in the plowing of sidewalk routes to schools. Term of this agreement shall be from August 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2026. The said agreement shall be subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. Funding is provided by the Jamestown schools, with any remainder to come from ARPA funds. I don't know if there's any questions for executive session or for open session, but because this is a contractual agreement, finance is requesting executive session
I'm sorry, for what purpose?
to discuss the details of the contract or the agreement with them, or if anybody had any other specific questions.
I guess I don't understand what category that would fall under.
Probably potential litigation, wouldn't it?
For contract?
I think so. You said
For the contract.
Yeah.
Or contract negotiation, one or the other.
Contract negotiation only applies to union, but potential litigation is what I'm hearing.
I don't believe there are any issues or questions, but because it's contractual or litigation, I would suggest that we have that. Resolution number 12, Jamestown City Council adopted the resolution number 2002-01C03, effective immediately and until further notice, instituted the hiring freeze for the city of Jamestown. And this is to, effective immediately, the Jamestown City Council suspends the hiring freeze instituted in that resolution and filling of the vacancy of one full-time firefighter due to a retirement. This was approved by finance. Resolution number 13, mayor is authorized to execute an agreement with Estabone Construction of Fredonia, New York for concrete work reconstruction on Chambers Street based on the bid opening of July 7th for the total amount of $84,950.00, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form, funded through CHIPS and approved by finance. Resolution number 14, bid submitted by Support Enterprises to furnish janitorial services to the municipal building in the following amounts. Price per month for year 2, February 1, 2022 to January 31st, 2023 to deduct $1,579.60. Price per month for year 3, February 1, 2023 through January 31st, 2024 to deduct $1,933.25. Per change order number 1 from Support Enterprises, Incorporated, General Manager, dated September 1, 2022, and referencing Resolution 2021-09-A15, dated September 28, 2021. That was approved by Finance. Resolution number 15, that Jeffrey Lehman, PE Director of Public Works, be authorized and directed to sign an intermunicipal agreement, project identification number 5761.83 with Chautauqua County, authorizing use and access to certain city property for replacement of Hopkins Avenue Bridge, bid number 225-8430 over Chautauqua River, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. That was approved by Finance. And finally was resolution number 16, designating $100,000 and no cents in ARPA Healthy Neighborhood Funds for the purpose of funding a zoning code update to be administered through the Jamestown Local Development Corporation by the Jamestown Urban Renewal Agency. And this is funding provided through ARPA. Just to note that it was done in 1969 with some amendments made in 1999. 98, so very necessary to get this done. That was approved by Finance.
Please know that was only around for.
We did not have time to get into discussion with the informational report and the grant update.
Councilman, I just wanted to add for the zoning plan update, The city did receive $100,000 from Empire State Development through the Regional Economic Development Council for a comprehensive plan. So this goes hand in hand. It's easier for cities to do a comprehensive plan and a zoning update at the same time and costs less. So we estimate it'll be about $200,000 to do both. Half of that has already been covered by the state. Thank you.
That is it out of finance.
I was alive, I was only. Move on to housing.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have no resolutions, however, we did have a very well-attended housing committee meeting. We began the discussion about some changes to the ordinances for housing. And the general consensus that I got was that we need to have a lot more discussion with landlords. And again, we realize and want to recognize that not every landlord is a problem. They were concerned that in many cases, some of the issues with properties in terms of code enforcement have to do with tenant irresponsibility, and that the landlords seem to be, having to share the burden of the irresponsible tenants. They definitely have concerns about the blight, and obviously, are willing to work with the city. The landlord registration, a good point was brought up because in many instances, emergency responders don't know who the contacts are for the properties. Even though we have the list, there's some concern that they are not, those lists and names are not available to the first responders when there's an emergency.
I can vouch, that's a big problem.
It is, and well, that was brought up, and as I'm trying to hit the highlights, I mean, there was a lot of discussion. And I have to admit, I was not aware of that. I did not know the numbers that we have, along with names and phone numbers change, and the city is not informed. Along with, actually indicated we need to know who the tenants are, but that's even more problematic to keep track of the tenants and names in terms of rescue if something were to happen. So more accountability all the way around, but just how do we manage that, recognizing manpower, staffing is difficult to get all this done. There was, I guess, a very pleased individual on the $100 parents fee was repealed. And one landlord is very happy about that, was not aware that that was waived or no longer required for appearing in court. The other highlight was that trying to get properties that have been rehabilitated, getting the licensed master plumbers and licensed master electricians on site to actually review the premises so that they can actually be occupied. And that is delaying a number of responsible landlords in getting units rented. So we're trying to look at that. There obviously is a shortage of inspectors and plumbers, and it's been very difficult for the landlords who are trying to do their best. This brief discussion about the 19A program, which I won't get into because Ben already brought up the highlights here. One point was made on looking at the zoning, that many of our neighborhoods used to be R1s, now we have R2s and R3s. Looking at, we need to increase home ownership, which I think some of the programs being proposed are attempting to do. And I think one comment to support the work that's been done, I think some people mistakenly believe that this was just thrown together, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I know the department has been working on it for many, many hours. I know Ben Haskins, as Assistant Corporation Counsel, has been very involved trying to get something in place, but I think we all agree that if we don't start, do something sometime, we're going to be talking about the same problem in 5 and 10 years, and it won't be any better than what it is right now. And we all agree that it isn't where we want it to be. I think, some of the programs in the ARPA funding can help restore and save some of the properties that are blighted, that neighbors are sick and tired of having to live next to when they try to keep up their own properties. We saw what happened on Spring Street with an absentee landlord who let everything go, and the responsible homeowners had to look at all the blight, and it was a mess. The more we can do to help the existing homeowners to to continue to restore and save the one house or two houses on the block that are bringing everybody else's property values down. It helps all of us in terms of the assessments, the value associated with the properties, and helping everybody to have a community that they're proud of, and that everybody's glad to drive down any street and say, I wouldn't mind living here, I wouldn't mind owning a home here, and I would be happy to move to the city. So this is a start. I appreciate all the work and effort, and we will have more discussions with the public. I've advised all of them, if they have concerns or comments, to please contact any council member, those on housing as well as any others, as well as the city employees who would be glad to speak to this issue. There is a meeting with the REIA investors plan, and I don't know a date. I don't think a date has been determined yet, but we, encourage everyone who has an interest to please engage. This is not a once and done, and it's an effort in progress here, so please come forward. Don't wait till the last minute, bring the concerns and questions. But more to come, and the dialogue was great. We appreciate everyone was very civil, and everyone respected the individual's rights to speak up and say what they think. So it was a great meeting. That's it.
Move on to public safety. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. President. We did have the three ordinances dealing with rental inspection, vacant real property, and the public nuisance. We had brief discussion, but much more input is needed from the landlords. Also, we would like input from tenants and other residents of these rental properties. So we did table those three ordinances at this point in time. The next 10 resolutions are all on finance, so I'll just go over quickly. We approved the resolution designating $100,000 in a purple healthy neighborhoods fund for a zoning code update. Approved the entry doors at the three fire halls. We approved the installation of backup emergency generators at the three fire halls. Approved the overhead door systems at 4 fire halls. Approved the renovating the truck floor room at Station 105. We were not aware of the litigation that was involved there. Approved sending the 5 new firefighters to the training program in Marshall Falls. Approved purchase of the new 2020 Dodge Durango police pursuit vehicle. Approved JAG grant, that we get. Did not vote on the resolution on the shared services agreement with Jamestown Public Schools. There's more discussion on that. We did approve suspending the hiring freeze and hiring one more full-time firefighter due to a recent retirement. And the last resolution we had was Vision Zero program. Zach was going to be presenting that tonight to the full council. We did not have the full wording of the resolution, so we did not pass that at this point in time. We have several special event applications. One was approved last week before the after ball game fireworks at Eater Park, held in the Park last Friday. Nice job. There were no loud reports. Big bang, so that was good. We approved the Jamestown Public Markets Children's Market to be held this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on 3rd Street between Pine and North Main Street. They're extending one more block on 3rd Street. Still a bit bigger than usual. We approved the special event application for the Lucille Ball Comedy Festival to be held from August 3rd to August 7th. Various locations throughout the city. Approved Chautauqua Center's Community Picnic to be held Tuesday, August 9th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Jackson Taylor Park, like a large pavilion. Approved a block party application for the Stowe Street 70s themed block party to be held Saturday, July 30th from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. And approved block party to be held Royal Fullerton area on September 17th from 2 to 6 p.m. also, report a complaint about some planters that are obstructing vision at some intersections around town, and forwarding that to Parks Department to take a look at the placement of these planters and to see if we can get some of them moved so people can see around the corner. That's all we have.
Move on to public works.
Thank you, Mr. President. The three resolutions that were before us were, they were covered in finance. Briefly was agreement with the Bowen Construction out of Fredonia to do some flat work and some asphalt repaving. And that would be funded through CHIPS program. Another one would be to the janitorial services in City Hall, and that would, there would be a deduct, a little rebate there because of the one floor that they may not have to do or probably don't have to do. And the other one was to let the county use a little piece of property when they work on a bridge over on Hopkins Avenue over the Chappaqua. One of the bigger things was the fleet maintenance building project down on Washington Street. Some of the quotes that for the work have come in have gone up, like most everything else. Okay. Yeah. That will be passing them out. Speak a little bit on it. Basically the mechanical, plumbing has gone up, and some of the electrical to the tune.
Thank you, sir.
The original bond was for $3 million. State grant was for $1 million. And then there was a NYSERDA grant that Director Lehman has told us that is a probable to be obtained. And hopeful, yes. And so the adage, the increases, okay, I'll slow up. I could actually come back to that. Go ahead. Okay. Yeah, so we've got, Alston Schaefer, for the electrical work, $744,000, subject to approval from Corporation Council. Ciancio Mechanical, for the plumbing, the total bid is $369,504. And this, then you got the Building Innovation Group out of Rochester for general construction for the contract. And that for a total bill of $2,499,000 and $683. So the The increase, we are looking at is gonna be $534,000, $487, $534,447.
I have a question though.
Okay.
The NYSERDA grant, we haven't applied for that yet?
Yes.
We did?
NYSERDA has been applied for, we're waiting to hear back. There's several different grants that were applied for, and that was one of them.
So the $500,000 overage is assuming that we get the $800,000 NYSERDA grant.
That's correct. That's correct. And just so folks are aware, the NYSERDA grant is a specialty grant that is given to, that is going specifically to public utility companies. So there's a set aside amount, and so the public utilities along with the city applied for that grant, amongst some other grants as well.
So,
And the reason for the grant is because we made the building 100% electric, no gas, you know.
so do we have to share this 800,000 with BPU, or is?
No,
that
this is
our-
just earmarked for this project. They've applied for other grants as well.
Charging stations.
Which is gonna be total electric according to our understanding, right?
Yes.
The whole building
Right.
through state,
That said, that helped bump up the price of the overall cost. The other thing we found is that since these went up, we estimated this pre-COVID, building prices are up 35 to 40% right now, so no big surprise.
Is there any timeline when we might hear about the NYSERDA grant?
I don't know if we know that. We didn't know that as of Thursday, I guess.
I don't know what the timeline is on that.
It's due out so very soon, I guess. And just as a rehash, we did order material already. We have that material package for the new building coming in sometime in August is when it's due. So you know where we're at, I guess, you know.
And the prices have probably even gone up even more since you ordered.
Yeah, they're knocking on wood, they haven't, we were waiting for them to call us back to say it was gonna be more, but so far so good. And these bids, I'm sorry, bids were opened up in late June. We've been trying to work with them, well, that's the other thing we haven't talked about. We did go back and try to do some value engineering by going to all the low bidders to see what some things that we might be able to do to lessen the price. At this point, we've got about $100,000 worth of potential items that we could shave back, I guess. And we're still looking at a couple other ones that might be out there. So we may be able to adjust this price $100,000 down.
Are you selling the property to Tim Hortons or leasing it to them?
That's already been sold and they've got a permit to go to town.
That was actually sold by Schultz.
Oh, before, okay.
They Schultz had kept a small sliver of that, and sold it to Tim Hortons.
Yeah, the northern 101 feet were sold off to them. I think. So there will be donuts and coffee.
Isn't that convenient?
couple other matters. There was a request for parking on Curtis Street, from Faulkner to Durant. The request for parking on one side only, due to that there's no houses on the east side of the road over there. And the DPW did their study, and as far as not being able to do the proper maintenance, the daily maintenance in the winter, they decided to turn that request down as far as they've got to be able to work in there. So, and for the everyday winter maintenance in the winter months. So it was recommended they leave it to the current signing on Curtis Street. Another one is for Melanie Witkowski, the Executive Director from Prevention Works. And they are on 509 North Main Street. And she requested to have some free parking in front of 509. And she would want 6 spaces, okay? And as far as, that was reviewed by the traffic supervisor and spoke with Director Lehman. And in a way, people do park there for other businesses. And they also would want it a handicap too, but they're parked there for other business. And so we would not recommend removing the meters for free parking. The last one was.
Hey, excuse me, we also are recommending an additional handicap space.
Yeah, yeah.
One end of the.
At either end?
spaces, and she was amicable to that.
Okay. The last thing was, it was brought to Mr. Lehman and Chris Brown, the traffic engineering, about the push button green arrow light over, at Second and Washington Street. The push buttons over there were a lagging green arrow. They're not gonna address that right now because since the road is under contract with the state DOT, we're gonna kind of leave that.
That whole system is getting built, so.
Pedestrian crosswalk at James Street, at JCC, at the MTI Industrial Center. That was requested for the traffic division to paint the crosswalk, and that has been painted.
Thank you.
Yes, and that's it.
All right. Anything else before the mayor?
I've got something that I'd like to add. We're spending a lot of money, a lot of ARPA money. If we had to utilize the consulting company on any of these expenditures, or Vinesky or Vinsky? or-
Vinesky, yeah, Doug Vinesky, yes.
So we haven't utilized them,
Yes.
these guys through some of this, it seems a lot, there's a lot going
Yes.
on.
Doug has provided, anytime we've all asked for additional legal input, we've consulted with Doug as well as our attorneys. In addition, Doug has helped us to completely prepare all of the immense reporting that's required through the Treasury Department. So any municipality that has been given more than $10 million has some not only quarterly reports, but also year-end reports and other things. And we have to go in some cases, pretty significant detail. So he's been helping us prepare all of those reports.
Yeah, I just hadn't heard.
That's a great question.
I had also asked John to send to everybody a summary, including tonight's numbers. Just tonight's numbers in front of us, there was an additional $3,850,000 in requests for ARPA spending. That total comes up to $19,583,713,000. So I asked him to supply that to everybody so you could see where we were at. The only thing I noticed missing on here that you want to fix before you send the category total amounts at the top. Okay.
Good?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I feel like I was the student that missed the bell in class and didn't get to the chair fast enough up front. To my defense, I finally got a hold of someone at Verizon customer service about my cell phone bill. So got a chance to, once I got someone live on the phone, I could not let them go. You know how, what happens if you hang up. So apologies for that. I just have a couple updates from the messages from the mayor. I do have a couple items for executive session, but just updates for the city council from the mayor's perspective. Number one, I wanted to briefly mention something that we don't often talk about, but is incredibly important, which is homelessness in the city. Many of you may have noticed, and we have seen an increased amount of homelessness, whether that's underneath viaducts, railroad tracks. We're seeing folks now camping out in some of our park areas. So there's certainly a lot more and much more visible in certain areas. So our team, all of our leadership team for the different departments met on this issue, and we're talking about just ways that we can kind of brighten up, open up some of the spaces, partner with various agencies that are helping people that are currently homeless or in need of shelter. And we are continuing to work with those agencies in order to address this issue. We have been made aware of some incidents that we have to address. For example, there are some churches feeding groups in public areas, which could cause some liability for the city, so we are going to address those things. But I do want to just mention it to the city council that obviously our goal is not to just kick everyone out everywhere they're at, but to try to provide them some support. So I got a chance to speak with the Chautauqua County Homelessness Coalition, and we will be convening a special meeting just to focus on the city of Jamestown and the rise in homelessness and need for shelter that we are starting to see here, okay? It is not something that we are all gonna solve, and it's something we need to all work together in order to take care of. But we are seeing a lot of people that have moved into the city in our employees' discussions with a lot of these individuals. And mind you, there really haven't been many altercations with employees. People have complied if you've asked them to kind of move on or to get support or help. They're coming from all different places, different states, coming to the area because they may have had a connection here, and that connection is now gone, and they don't have a way to get home to wherever they originally came from. So we've got a lot, we're working on it, and I just wanted to make you all aware that if you do see things, please let us know. All of our departments are on alert for this, and are trying and now have in their hands resources that they can provide those individuals directly. We've also been working directly with our police department for beat patrols, which has really helped deal with some of these issues in various areas across the city. Okay. Any questions on that? I know you've probably all seen it. We don't talk about it enough, but I wanted to make you aware of some of the initiatives that we're working on as a city.
Are you getting complaints from businesses about problems with people who are, bothering customers,
Sure.
or taking anything, or blocking doorways, or anything like that?
So we've not received an increased number of, for example, police complaints. We did have some incidents where some businesses have been broken into in areas that have been unsecured. So for example, near the viaducts, the fencing had been removed by some folks, and some businesses had been broken into near that area. We have since cleaned those areas out, and we are working, we put the fencing back up, but we're working with the railroad directly, whose direct responsibility it is to ensure there's higher fencing and it is more secure. So we are seeing a little bit.
I went down there last night at the viaduct, and the fencing I noticed is put in with lag bolts now. Obviously, it make it much harder to pull it down. There is a lot of garbage under,
Yep.
beyond that fencing. I also noticed that one section of the fencing is completely gone, so you can have access, and there's another section of fencing where a hole has been cut inside, so you have access in there. The other thing that I'm concerned about, and I brought it up a couple years ago, and I know it's been back and forth, is the lighting down there is terrible. That's a major thoroughfare through there, and, when I brought it up before, the railroad says, well, no, it's not our responsibility, it's the city's responsibility. And the city says, no, it's the railroad's responsibility to have adequate lighting underneath the viaduct. I don't know what the answer is, who's responsible for it, but I think it poses a real danger,
Yes.
to not have adequate lighting underneath what part of that viaduct.
Thank you, Councilman Russell. The first thing I will tell you is that we are holding the railroad 100% responsible for any break-ins and things that are happening near that viaduct area. So we've been coming down hard on them to not only secure that area, clean that area, but we're also talking about lighting. That area has also been pegged as a potential for a, I don't know if you want to call it a remodel or a grant to completely open up that area and transform that space with additional lighting. So we are waiting to hear back from the state for reallocation of a grant that was supposed to be used for another portion of the city that is not going to happen for development, and use that to develop that viaduct area with some additional lighting, some additional space. It's a connector to the Riverwalk, and so we therefore need to be keen to that.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Okay, a couple other updates. We had heard today about the BPU and streaming. I got some emails from council members about streaming the BPU. They are looking into it, the BPU board. We did offer to allow them to come onto the city council's platform as well. So we're in the process of doing that. I do want to note, Mr. Champion mentioned we have not had another board meeting yet since that would allow for any of the streaming, so we are working through that. I also want to note that we had put out, as of July 15th, the Rescue Plan Fund program for senior citizens, for those that are on a STAR exemption, enhanced exemption, or those that do have a senior citizen exemption or aged exemption. There were two programs. One would cover up to $10,000 in renovations for your home. The other one would cover up to $10,000, but with a 10% match to those renovation costs. At this time, we had sent out there were some questions over how people learned about it. Anyone who had an exemption on their house, we directly mailed them a letter so that they were aware of it. And given the population that we're looking at, we didn't want to rely on just the newspaper and social media, so we did send letters based on tax exemptions. And we did receive so far, we've been requested or have received requests for over 150 applications to be mailed out. We are starting to get them in hand, and we'll start processing those, but we do want to encourage, if you do have any senior citizens or constituents that have called you, they should apply as soon as possible in order for us to ensure that we still have the continued funding and make sure that they have quotes. The other thing that I do want to point out that we'll be pushing out some more information on is we've already heard of some contractors trying to scam our senior citizens. So we want to remind the public that under the program, the city will directly pay the contractor once the work is completed. Right? The only match that we would require is if a contractor requires a deposit and you have a 10% match, you can put your money to that deposit as the match. Right? We've already heard that some contractors are saying, just pay us all the money and we'll get it back from the city. And so it is, that is not how the program works for our senior citizens. We've encouraged them to call the mayor's office, call the assessor's office. In fact, several have because they thought, hey, this doesn't sound right after they looked at the application. But we want to make you all aware as constituents call you, as well as the public aware that those things are going on. We'll address those with individual contractors if we learn about them, but certainly in no way do we want to make this somewhere where one of our senior citizens is getting scammed.
And that application is available online as well?
It's online, or if you call, really any of the offices at the city will mail you one, which is what we've been doing all along.
What's the closing date on that for applications?
It's a rolling application. We're doing it from a first come, first served basis. Sorry, Councilman. Any questions on that? I will say applications have been coming in. To be honest, our assessor, Lisa, she's had about 10 people each morning already lined up at her office by the time she's opening the door. So it's been very popular, and I do thank you all for being able to fund that. We do have another one that you funded that will be rolling out shortly thereafter, which is a cash rebate for renovations for members of the folks that generally own property. We wanted to try to work on the senior one first because we knew that was a priority to do.
Mr. Mayor, just one point as a senior citizen, I'm personally getting, after after I applied, scams from usgovernmentgrants.com about the city of Jamestown. Where is that coming from?
I have no idea. It's not from us. So we typically don't try to scam you with the government. So
Well, it's out there.
sure. Well, we are trying to address that with the public. Thank you for raising that. The last update that I just have for you guys is I want to really just thank you all as council members for the work that you do to instill a real sense of community in Jamestown. I will tell you that my weekends, as well as yours, have probably become very busy with the amount of activities, events, programs, and things for family and people to do in the city of Jamestown. Some of our staff were talking about it today as we were passing in the halls, and we're saying this is a really good thing. This is a really good thing to see that people have something to do on the weekends. We were talking about next weekend, there's probably 3 or 4 events going on all at once. It's a lot, but it's really, really great to see people back. I had the pleasure of going to the Scandinavian Festival briefly on Saturday, and by 1 o'clock, I don't know the total numbers, but by 1 o'clock, the Northwest Arena had already welcomed in 500 people.
Over 1,000.
Yeah, it was really great to see. So the more things we're able to do, and I really attribute it to the work that we are all doing together to continue to build a real sense of community in the city. And I just wanted to end by thanking you for all that. It's tough to come out of the pandemic. I know none of us have ever done it, but to see people doing really great things in the community is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and I just wanted to thank you.
Is your Swedish dance on YouTube?
My Swedish dance may be on YouTube. The lovely Swedish dancers and I had a wonderful, I don't know if you call it a jig on in Tracy Plaza, but it was really quite the time. I do have one item for executive session, which is a contract negotiation for our unions. And then I had heard that there is one for impending litigation and one for potential litigation.
There's 3 total.
3 total. is
2
what I
that
heard.
came out of finance,
That's correct.
and then the 1 contract.
That is correct.
Do I have, take any action?
No, not on mine.
No action. No action to be taken on any of those items. Yep. Discussion.
Do I have a motion to go? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are in a 28.
Oh.